Okay.
that you're putting out or a certain standard.
Hey, Pam.
Morning, Pam.
Morning, Pam. Yeah, you set? Okay. We online?
You are online, yes.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doesn't look it, but is there anybody here that would like to address this board with an issue of concern or a question that is not on today's agenda? Okay, all right. That I ask the clerk to take the roll.
Supervisor Mike Planko,
Here.
Slurs Alex,
Here.
Chiarenza,
Here.
Mannion,
Here.
Ruckteschau,
Here.
and Counselor Clehood is absent today.
Okay. I put Brad on the agenda here. He's first up. He's got to run because he's got to get to an airport early this morning. So anyways, without further ado, you guys know Brad has helped us out with the fire district issues that we've had over the last year, and he's here to support a position that I've been advocating with this board for years, and that is the expansion of the Eves district throughout the town of DeWitt. Brad is actually also, Eves is a client of his. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to pitch something to you. Now that the DeWitt Fire District is mostly done and expanded, the next is ambulance. And for those who don't know, and if you've ever called 911, you do, let me tell you generally what is not just happening now, but has been happening for a decade. Our ambulance service nationwide in New York and Onondaga County is in crisis. And the reactions are helpful and hurtful. What happens is city and other areas are overwhelmed with medical calls. And what will occur is the ambulances will go from here, Fayetteville, Manlius, anywhere. They end up at the ER and they're probably dispatched to somewhere else outside their territory because there are no ambulances. So we are supplementing many of the other entities 911. So I'm going to leave names out because this is a public meeting. I don't want to public call anybody, but we are being, our resources are being sent other places. Hospitals have exceedingly long wait times. As a result, we don't have to look any farther than the North Country, what has happened and what will happen here. Because we have a limited number of ambulances, because we have a limited number of paramedics and EMTs, and despite the pay increases since COVID, that number is not rising very significantly. And because we have exceedingly long hospital wait times, the hospitals, again, just look to the North Country, are creating inter-facility ambulances. They're paying well. It is not dangerous work. It's predictable work. It is satisfying work. I know many people who work for that, and they are pulling people off the 911 ambulances. And 911 is in more of a crisis, finally starting to get people out of the hospital, which is what ultimately filters out long ER wait times. But our 911 system is further in crisis, trying to resolve the hospital system. We have the demand increases. We do not have the supply. Additionally, New York State's certificate of need process, which forces you to prove need, is not helping us. Because on each of the councils where a new ambulance company would go and say, we want to help out the system, they are run mostly by the privates. They're staffed by the private ambulance services, and they're denying new ambulances entry into the market. I know this because I applied for one, Rockland County. They were denied mostly because the board is comprised of all privates. They are not letting in competition. So since the commercials control the entry into EMS, it's not getting any better. So what's the role here? And I won't even talk about what adding, 50,000 jobs is going to do to this environment. So I can tell you I represent an ambulances company nationwide, and I work on this issue nationwide, as well as heavily in New York. And the solution is becoming, and this is not new. I've been doing this for 30 years, but about 20 years ago, starting in Sand Lake, New York, and others, we've seen municipalities say the solution is we want our own captured ambulance. And I'm doing this all throughout the state. I'm telling you, it's the unspoken trend, but it is what is happening. Municipalities are saying our taxpayers are paying to ensure there's an ambulance company in their town to protect their citizens. As a result, now you have a paid ambulance sitting here to replace or supplement the volunteer crew of old, and neighboring municipalities without paying are pulling in, right? So the city today, without their commercial service having to pay, has a whole free backup system that all the taxpayers fund without knowing it, because people other than the EMS community don't seem to be complaining about it. So the trend now, which I'm proposing here to hop on board because it's important to your residents, it's important to me, having an office here, and I should mention I've been a 50-year resident of my 57 years of town of DeWitt, either living or work format. I grew up on Brockway Lane. But the trend now, and what I'm urging you to do, is seize an annual company, serve all your residents, to make sure it's here, to make sure it's not leaving. Yes, we'll continue to support our immediate mutual aid neighbors. They will support you, you support them, but to ensure there's ambulance coverage here. Eves is prepared to do that. Eves is prepared to station themselves throughout the town, wherever you want them, where you can arrange for them. Eves is prepared to make sure that you have a dedicated ambulance. What will be controversial, though legal, and I've done it many other places, again, even 15, whatever years ago in Sand Lake, is we, and many other places since, is you would ensure there's always ambulance coverage for your residents. Yes, DeWitt Fire District has first response paramedic, right, which is an amazing need for them to provide you with. But as I sit at 4311 East Genesee Street every day, I watch the privates come in, right? Or the commercial services come in racing down the street, down a 30-mile-an-hour road, right? 10 minutes, 15 minutes after DeWitt has already gone to the call and is waiting for the ambulance. That also impacts fire coverage because the fire department is sitting on a medical scene, not able to respond to a fire scene. It has impacts. I won't get into the details of certificate of needs and authority. That's what you're going to hear. I have a solution. I have a solution where Town of DeWitt controls the money and controls the cost. And there's almost no other choice for Eves but to work in this type of situation where Town of DeWitt is in charge of the purse strings and the expenses and the level of service. Because you would obtain a municipal certificate of need, giving the municipality operating authority, and you would receive the billing income. We would make sure it's dedicated to cover the cost, and we would cover the cost. They're a not-for-profit entity. Nobody's making money. It is the right way. They pay lower fuel tax, no sales tax, right? They can afford things privates can't do or commercials can't do. So it is the right way for you to protect your citizens. I will be back here in 10 years if we don't do it again. And I will say, I'm sorry that all of your ambulances are on the other side of the county, but there are no longer any MPs for you to select. People have built a job out there and they're living out there because that's where the job and the pay is. We do it now. It's a little bit protectionist, but we do it now. We create a culture where people want to work here. DeWitt is probably going to see it, I predict, with more calls and more action and a better, larger district. They're going to keep people. DeWitt, Manlius, Fayetteville, as many of you know, I was chief of Manlius for many years. We were the training ground for the city of Syracuse. We created great firefighters, and then they went to the city of Syracuse. And that is what is going to happen, is hopefully not going to happen anymore in the DeWitt Fire District, but let's do the same thing with ambulance. Let people come here and move here and live here and buy here and stay here and work here because they're going to have a career, not a job, a career working for an EMS system that's committed to the town of DeWitt and that will serve the residents and will not be stuck in a hospital or somebody else's calls while your taxpayers fund the bill outside. I'll answer any other questions. I'm leaving out many of the specifics, some because they're more important for.
I just want to add, we currently fund Eves in the Northtown District $400,000 a year. Eves can serve the entire town for $500,000. The traditional tax rate in the Northtown for Eves in the ambulance district has been about 22 cents per thousand. Based on last year's assessments, the entire town would pay about 12 cents per thousand. And assessments have gone up, so I'm sure that number has gone down. But so you're only picking up $100,000 more. And what we did with the contract with Eves is that any resident that receives a ride from Eves is forgiven their deductible. So that subsidy sets off an ambulance ride costs $1,000, $1,500, $1,800. The deductions can be as high as $700, $800. The average is probably around $500. So for those that have the calamity of needing an ambulance, they're paying in their tax bill. They're also paying when they have the accident or the emergency. And that $700, $800 and the emergency is per typical bill on an average home, less than $20 a year.
And that doesn't happen when a private comes in here. They have the full out of pocket. So your Medicare, Medicaid, or regular residents will all pay out of pocket, right? Which would not happen with a townwide EAVS contract. They're also not for profit, so that means they're charitable. They can waive or reduce their bill. Privates can't do that, right? But you can have it not for profit that's charitable. They can reduce it, further assisting your community.
Questions?
So uses 5 ambulances now, correct?
I don't know the
Eaves has
exact.
an extra, and so Eaves was serving, and I don't fully know the answers. Eaves was serving Brewerton. That's not happening now. So they have the resources from there to pull over to here. They told me they were ready January 1. They could have made this happen. They could put an ambulance out Jamesville or wherever. And they could cover the area almost immediately. They have the staff for it. And they, because of the not doing the Brewerton any longer, they're ready to go anytime.
So we're hung up in the hospital. What do you have, is AMR? Maximum,
AMR, Fayetteville, Manlius, you name it, everybody comes through here. But I can tell you the delay times, so I watch them every single day go by my window. But, you know, at Fayetteville, maybe has some more capacity now because they're not doing these calls at their urgent care, but we're just pulling it from somewhere else. Worse by the Janesville side, because they have the nursing homes out by Brighton, et cetera, and they're right near the city. We would restrict, right? We would, which you can do, restrict your ambulances from leaving your territory, but for your immediate mutual aid neighbors or some, you know, life-threatening situations, will be kind and humane, but we won't be abused. That's, I think, what will happen, but you will see response times come down dramatically. Again, the fire department should support it because it's going to increase their response times, increase their manpower to go to fire calls, not as many EMS, you know, they're going to stay on EMS needs as long. It's a win-win and it doesn't cost much. It just assures you, right? And if this becomes a problem for AMR or whoever, you know, let them fix theirs without relying on you to fix their system.
So if Eves is busy and AMR or, you know, or somebody else still has to show up, then you could end up you're paying in your taxes for this and you could still end up having to pay for the ambulance if AMR shows up.
Yeah, well, the rest, the today's system, that's 100% happening, right?
Well, but for today's system, so we have an ambulance district in part of
Yes.
the town, but the rest of the town isn't paying in their taxes now for it. They
Correct.
just pay if they use it.
Correct.
But this would change it to you're paying whether you're using it or not.
Yep.
But then you might also still have to pay if Eves, for whatever reason, isn't the one that shows up.
Right, but we would be able to, because you would be able to, staff to ensure that generally speaking, we're covering the anticipated need. And because staff, the Eves knows when it's busier, right? When it's less busy, Sunday mornings versus a Friday night. And they would staff around that. As opposed to when the city or somewhere else is busy, you know, you got to staff for that. But yes, I think the residents would all be paying to lower the cost, right? Or stratify the cost. And if there's a need, it depends where it is, right? Manlius is, it could be Manlius or MR coming to, you know, Southwood area, the Janesville area. It all depends. But Fayetteville and Manlius are used to providing mutual aid. We could work something out there to that with their governments, right? To talk about how do we ease everybody's costs.
A $500,000 house would pay $50 a year.
So perhaps you said this in your explanation is embedded. How do you then determine or give the exclusivity of an ambulance service to the residents of the town of DeWitt, preventing, I don't know if that's the right word to use, AMR from coming into the town of DeWitt? So when the call is made, 911, is it whoever picks up the call, or will it be exclusively for the residents of the town to go with these?
So it's not to exclude mutual aid. If there's no ambulances available, somebody else is going to come in. But New York State system under the Public Health Law, Article 30, creates a certificate of need process. Nobody can just open up an ambulance service if they want to. They have to go to a council, they have to go to the state, and they have to establish a need for their service. So there's only very few entities who have a certificate of need or an ambulance service certificate for the town of DeWitt. Mutual aid, all bets are off. It's whoever's closest will be dispatched. Usually that's, Fayetteville, or it depends what the call is. But so this certificate of need process is what automatically kind of protects each territory from other would-be poaching ambulance services or just opening up shop.
Like Dave Butler's a friend.
Oh, TLC. Yeah, Dave Butler's one of
He's a
them.
private.
Yep.
Would he back up?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak for, Dave. Years. But everybody's gonna, just as you support everyone else will support you. The little bit of blowback, which is not unique to here, will be, I'm gonna suggest that you don't let your ambulances go all over God's green earth. And that when they're at the hospital, they return to DeWitt. They're not called to the other side of the county, that they come back here because that's what you're paying for. And all of your communities around here are doing the same thing. It's just that you're fronted on numerous sides, whether it's the Janesville side or here with the city and with those issues. And I'm telling you, Micron's going to make this worse. We have, again, fewer ambulances. We're not growing EMTs, and our population is growing. We either create a system now, where people want to live here, work here, make a career here versus jump ship for a higher paid job somewhere else, or you're going to be last to the game and you will have nobody. And I'm telling you that from personal experience. And I can point you in other places, I won't say publicly, but others of my clients, other towns, mostly in Western New York, who are going through this now, and they're late to the game.
Is there anything in this that would prevent AMR, since they already exist, from positioning an ambulance somewhere within the town of DeWitt so that whenever a call came in, they would be the closest?
Right, so General Municipal Law 122B allows the town to determine who is dispatched to their calls. So the town controls that choice. There's nothing that stops anyone with a full county certificate like AMR, like I think TLC, from positioning ambulances here. They wouldn't get the first call necessarily. Now, 911 can geolocate all the ambulances. They can tell you where they are. So if Eves is not available, it could be closest available. But the practicality or reality of that situation is all but impossible. Nobody has extra ambulances to just stick to fight the fight. But either way, town board resolution governs 911 and says the town determines who's the town's ambulance. And you would get your own certificate of need. You would have to town-wide, because Eves doesn't have the whole town in their certificate. And you would control, for a second reason, who's your responding ambulance. You would tell them where they're going to be, where they're going to stage. You control their hours. You will help oversee the administration of ambulance.
Here's my issue. I mean, everything you said sounds great. In a perfect world, this is obviously a county issue, as is the fire. We already pay one of the steepest fire taxes in the county. And our guys are off mutual aid we get taken advantage of. Eves, they had an article, I think it was in January, the Post did an article. Did you read that? I think Eves was, and we're subsidizing 400 grand, and they're spending 80% of their time outside of
Yes,
their district.
which we're going to stop.
Well, you say you're gonna stop it, but it's not gonna stop, because mutual aid is mutual aid, and you can't say, well, just wait a few minutes because Eves is gonna be there. AMR could be there in 30 seconds, but Eves can be there in 5 minutes. It's just, it's not safe, and it's not practical. So my issue is, and my concern is the county doing anything about this? Why isn't the county trying to bring these together? Because they could obviously do it. It'd be way more fair. Why is the town of DeWitt, now you say it's gonna be 500 grand? They're gonna go pick up another 4 or 5 ambulances. They're gonna have to hire 4 or 5 more guys. You're up to $1 million. And the 12 cents per thousand is probably closer to 20 cents, which still isn't gonna bankrupt anybody, but it's still the town of DeWitt saying, okay, we're gonna subsidize the county for 800 grand. I mean, the AMRs of the world aren't getting any tax money from the county, right?
No.
So why would the town of DeWitt just raise their hand and say, we're gonna be responsible, good citizens? And we're gonna tax all of our taxpayers 750, 800 grand to help the county out?
Yeah, I respectfully, I disagree with a lot of the premise. But it's because we have to change the paradigm. The $500,000 number, and you know, when we get to really scratching the surface of this, these will bring in and present their exact budget to you and their numbers to you.
They already do that. They do that on an annual basis and they're.
But they would do it on a full town.
And they're barely hanging out.
Always in the red.
Well, and because, you know, look, EMS costs have got skyrocketed. Ambulance that used to
I
be
know,
one.
I don't fault them. They do a great job and they're all committed. Because I know nobody's getting rich over at Eads. I know that for a fact.
But the change in paradigm is we would stop this town's residents, part of the town's residents, from funding the rest of the county. We would restrict the ambulance service to here, except for certain situations.
That's a dangerous game.
But it's the game that's happening. They're taking, don't forget the game that's being played. The game that's being played to save the system, right, is we're taking everybody's resources from here and everywhere else and sending them over there.
Right.
That's how 911, they gotta find.
That's why the county should step in and say, okay, we're gonna stop this unfair game, and it wouldn't be hard for them to set it up. I mean, you've got all the systems in place.
I think they're trying, but they're never gonna solve this. We have limited resources, limited ambulances, no county funding for ambulances. The county doesn't hold the certificates. They can't solve this. They can't any more than they've solved fire. They can come up with dispatch protocol, but they can't hire somebody. They can't restrict them here. They can't leave them here. They can't fund them. It's not even in the law. We got close. We'll see. Hopefully, I don't think it'll pass, but last year we had a county proposal where the county would be required to have ambulance service and would have to fund it, where each town would be required to fund it. We may see that this year, unless it gets vetoed, but it's possible. EMS is getting to the top. They may exempt EMS for the 2% cap. That's passed Senate and Senate. But we're not even scratching the surface of what needs to be. We need more providers, more ambulances, right? We have a better pay finally because of COVID. That's what did it. But they're still going where the calls are, and the calls are outside your town, and your resources, everybody's resources are leaving their home areas. And once they're at the hospital, you're fair game to be dispatched. That's what we need to stop. The county can't stop that because they need it. That's their backup. That's their plan, right? It's their forced plan. There just aren't resources. The city of Syracuse, look what the city did. We're gonna run our own ambulance. We can't wait for these times. Everybody's coming up with a way to try to address it, but I'm telling you, it's being homegrown right now. That's where we are, and you are ahead of it or behind it. They're either gonna take your resources or we start protecting, creating our own resources. And I think you need to help Eads grow, stay here, protect here. And I really do think, don't forget, Eads is still going to the people who aren't paying for it in the town. We could spread the water, lower the cost, lower the per, right, cents thousand. So it does work. And it can work. Here's the greatest thing. If you tried it for 2 or 3 years, you can always return to the old system. If it doesn't work, there's no harm. You just cut their territory back to where it was. It is worth the investment, and it's not much of an investment.
Can Eads or within the current boundary, you're talking about restrictions from the ambulances going outside of the district, can that be restricted to the current district
Yes.
boundaries?
Yeah, you can do that today. You can do that today. And look, I always have exceptions for, major trauma, for childbirth, where there's sort of human exceptions, but for a lift assist, for a, interfacility transport for non-emergent stuff, why are residents paying to send ambulances out to non-emergent calls? I'm not saying they're not important, but we have to prioritize life. We're in a rationed healthcare system. We need to prioritize life over, something else, but that's where your people are going. So I think homegrown or expanded homegrown is the solution, but you'll see it. You're gonna see 2 more in Western New York in the next 2 months.
The county is currently they're evaluating EMS on the county scale right now, correct? Do you know if they have a timeline for when they're going to have their study?
I don't, and I'm skeptical of it. I was skeptical of it in fire, and it hasn't happened in fire. right? I mean, we've been talking about a countywide fire system, which doesn't exist under the law, but we've been talking about that forever. Nothing's happened. I don't think the county has the availability. Look, I set up Fulton County and Herkimer County, I think, their countywide EMS system. I set it up for them. It's a Band-Aid supplement. If you look at those systems, it is a Band-Aid supplement. They didn't replace anybody. They're just sending, so instead of having 40-minute response times, they have 15 and 20-minute response times, but at least there's a response. That is two counties' systems. Madison County has their own EMS system now, right? Madison County EMS. There are still long waits. It's not a perfect system. You're in the position where you could have a perfect system. In both Western and Eastern New York counties, in Altamont, and I could come up with a lot of them, but counties have put the privates or put the small volunteers and the others out of business intentionally. But all we've done is shift resources. But we're playing with the same number of resources, right? We're just shifting them around. Nobody's created more EMTs. Nobody's created more ambulances. We've just shifted that. And we've gone from a lot volunteer and got rid of the volunteer to paid. So I mean, we're decreasing. The solution is not the county, not because they're not capable, because I've done it and it's a Band-Aid, right? Again, look at Fulton County. It's a good Band-Aid, but it's not a solution. You are in the position where you have your own, the call volume to support it. You're not rural, and you can have a solid EMS system to protect your thousands of residents and workers here day and night.
Has there been an aggregation of the call or the volume of calls within the totality of the town of Wynn? Such that if these were to supply, that they would still be able to serve without additional delay? Has that study, have that been looked at?
So before we came to the town many months ago, and we looked at call volume, we looked at increased billing revenue, which is part of what keeps costs down. And by the way, billing revenue would come into the town, we would help manage that, right? So I'm proposing a radical system of town control to keep costs down, right? Not just rely on something. But we looked at the calls, the call volume, how many ambulances we need, where we need to locate, and we believe we have a plan that will work. And that's how we came to the number and the projected number of ambulances. A Monday at 9 a.m. is not the same as Sunday at 5. It's staffed differently. So they have, decades of experience to know where the calls are. So I think they're ready to do that and provide you with the right number of ambulances. They're not gonna sit with an ambulance available every day, right? Which they're always gonna probably be just enough or under, because that's what people are gonna want to pay for, just enough. So if you wanted to have an extra ambulance, that's on you. You could decide we want another ambulance put here to cover extra, but that's not the plan. The plan is just enough, but for here, not just enough for the entire town.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ray.
Thanks.
Thank you. Can I steal you? Thank you.
Have a great trip.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be in touch. For what it's worth, to be continued, but this is probably something, I'm at a point where I've 6 months left at the supervisor's position, so the only commitment I'll make is I will bring this to vote. But I intend to push this before the end of the year. Okay. Hey, Nadija, I see you're here. Are you ready to go? Or do you need a minute?
So one of my colleagues, he said he was gonna join Dan, but he said 9:15, wanna give him a few.
Okay, I'll give him a few minutes. Yep, that's 10 minutes. Well,
And we need to.
okay, let's do some stuff that we know we can get out quickly. Brack, hire the superintendent or the highway MEO, Breeze.
So I have a candidate, Daryl Breeze, to fill one of the positions. We're gonna start him at 2685, step 8, with a start date of July 7th. There's a lot of experience. We do have the equipment, back truck, which would be very helpful for us, snow plowing. He's currently has a CDLA license. Any questions on Daryl?
Where's Kenneth?
Optech.
So just try.
Optech. There's a whole I got a story up.
Yeah.
I own Optech stock.
I think it's up there. I don't know.
I don't know if it's gotten any higher than 11 cents. I haven't looked in a while.
Any questions?
I have a motion from Max, a second from Bernard. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Next would be Joshua Meeker. Starting salary 25-27, step 6, a little less construction experience. Start date of July 7th. He's done work with landscaping, ground maintenance, tree removal, forklift. And he also has an A license too. So I'd like to bring him on July 7th. If anybody has any questions on him.
Where's it coming from?
He delivers Mount Dog beverage. Yeah. So he's moving a lot of stuff every day.
Entertain a motion from Max and a second from Bernard. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried. Okay,
I just have to post for one, we did have a resignation. Brad Tenne went to work for himself, bought a truck, wish him the best. Tough guy to lose, really good worker, good operator, so we're looking to post for his position.
any questions or I'll entertain a motion? Motion from Carrie, second from Joe. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Okay. That's Angela, town board minutes, June 9th. Anybody? Folks have a chance to read them? Entertain a motion from Carrie, a second from Bernard. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried. Let's
I
see.
do have one more personnel thing. but
Okay, yeah.
It's good.
Some of these others may be a minute.
Yeah, we authorized the posting of the recreation supervisor position 2 weeks ago, and we've had one internal applicant for that. That's Sandy Elsie. So I have the details on it from Carrie. Would like to. You don't have to have the details. Do you, Angela? It's not coming.
It looks like provision would be appointed provisionally effective 6/23 at grade 10, step 15 at a rate of 35.88 per hour.
Yeah, that is correct. That's, I took on it, but I had to. So effective today.
Okay, all right, so I have a motion from Max. Do I have a second from Carrie? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried. Okay. Alana, the discussion of fireworks code update? Is that online noise?
No, I can.
You know,
bring
and
it
it's-
back there.
It's the cabinets upstairs. maybe.
Oh, that's our construction day.
Might remember I came in October to talk about our fireworks code, which is pretty outdated. There's several issues. First of all, it doesn't require a lot of information right now. It also comes to the town board, each of these permits for approval. Doesn't require sending to the fire department, which we do anyway, but that's not the current how it currently goes. And right now, I think it says it should also go to the town clerk, not us, which also doesn't make much sense. So I provided some updated code at that time and asked for thoughts. I didn't receive any comments. I've coordinated with the police chief, fire chief, town manlius. I've tried to coordinate with, I haven't gotten a response from them as far as this code goes. Though we had talked about doing some sort of, you know, agreement with them, you know, for mutual.
Right, yeah, for solving the problem with respect to the country club.
Was hoping we could all pass the same code, so it wouldn't matter which town was approving them for when they're actually from the town of Manlius, but I haven't had any comments. But basically, this code, I looked at a lot of state and federal standards. Put in new stuff about minimum separation distances, which is not currently in our code. Added more information that would be required in a permit application. Just to meet those state and federal requirements. Also, we would send it to the fire department in addition to the police department. The town board would no longer have to approve these permits, but we would notify the town board every time there was a permit. And then notably, we would add that fireworks display shall not exceed 30 minutes of duration and shall be completed before 10 p.m. And the permit applicant, upon approval of the application, shall provide written notice to all residential properties within a 1,000-foot radius of the fireworks launch location at least 10 days prior to the display. Because we get complaints every time the country club sets these up.
Yeah, the two big fireworks users in Central New York is the Onondaga Country Club and Lemoyne College. And Lemoyne is once a year, but we do get complaints every time that they do it. So I remember the dilemma last time was the management of the country club, right? Who was gonna be taking the permits, or do we resolve that? You just said you haven't heard from the town of Manlius.
With Manlius, I've sent this code to them twice, haven't got the response. The issue is that they're setting off that the address of the country club is in DeWitt because that's where their main building is, but the location where they're setting off the fireworks is in the town of Manlius.
Right. And I know I was
There are
advocating.
many of these, but they're in their actual launch location is the town of Manlius.
I know I was advocating for us to continue to be the issuer of the permit, because at least that lets us know. By turning that over to Manlius, I think our residents are then at a disadvantage because, you know, they might not require 1,000-foot notice or whatever. So I guess that's my last and final question. I'll open it up to the board. Are we prepared to continue with this code change to be the entity that issues the permits for that entire property?
I think that's up to the town board. I don't think that's up to our department to make that determination. What we were hoping-
I'm fine.
Yeah, that's why we're hoping to pass the same code with Manlius so that we
Right.
would notify in here, have the department will notify the town board of the permit, or actually. So refer the department to the application, then refer the application to the fire department, police department, and any adjacent municipality located within 500 feet of the launch location. So we were hoping if we passed the same code that we would notify each
Understood.
other and it would have the same regulations, but. haven't had
We
luck.
may still be able to get, if we go forward with this and once we have it passed and we give the completed legislation over to Manlius, and they may just take it out.
What I don't want to do is pass this code, and even if we get Manlius to pass it,
No, I think we're fine just taking the country. I agree.
to send the applicant when they come and ask for the permit, oh, you're gonna launch in Manlius, go see them. Well, that's what I don't want.
It's-
I want to make sure that we're still at central control of the country club.
What's the radius requirement right now?
I don't think there is, a I mean. if
The
you
1,000
look at
feet,
the notes-
1,000 feet seems a little stiff.
I mean, for notification,
Then we're
there
gonna,
isn't
and
any requirement right
and
now.
we're gonna put that on the permit applicant. So if there's 300 houses that need to get there, we think that they're gonna go out.
Most
That's
of these
like,
houses are in Manlius,
I
and
know,
that's where we get our.
I know you have the permit applicant shall provide written notice.
Yeah.
So we're gonna expect the country club to send out 300 letters every time to all the neighbors. Not
I
gonna
think
happen.
I think we did it on the map. It wasn't 300 houses within the spot.
I don't think 1,000 feet's that long, really. You're only talking 2/10 of a mile.
Yeah, it was a few blocks into like that
Right.
Manlius, but and none of the DeWitt residences are in this. I don't think any of them were in this radius. All the complaints we get are from Manlius after these are set off.
All right, okay. Fair enough.
you have a 50-foot lot across the width, it's that long,
They're kind of.
20 houses.
Golf course, you have
Yeah.
to get out of the golf course before you hit it.
Again, if the average lot was 50 feet wide and you had 1,000 foot, you're talking 20 houses.
Right, so it looks, I mean, you cleaned it up, it's probably responsible, so anything we can do to make it a little more responsible will help.
No, I like the changes. I think it's good. My one issue is central control of the permits. Okay, so do you need us to set a public hearing for this code?
Don't do it yet.
What-
Let me
right.
present the board with a final copy, then we can.
Okay.
First, I have a couple questions that we can pop offline.
Okay.
Here.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're gonna come back to you in a minute.
I'll put this in my format and we can schedule it fine.
I know that Pam is here and Nodesia and Rob and see that,
Oh, yeah.
Dave Knapp is, Dave, welcome to our county representatives. You all know
For rising, good morning, and, we are here as representatives of the Onondaga County Legislature. My name is Nidecia Hernandez, I'm the minority leader of the county legislation. We wanted to come today and just recognize our colleague. He was a dear friend of mine. I was able to meet him on the Democratic Committee, and he's just been a blessing to have his knowledge ever since. So with that being said, we're going to take turns reading this. So I want to say the legislative chambers of Onondaga County, New York, presented by Leader Nidecia Hernandez, Legislator Deb Cole, and she wasn't able to make it today, Dan Romeo, and David Knapp. The above name mentioned of the county legislative of Onondaga County, New York, on the 23rd day of June 2025, wishes to recognize and honor the passing of God's servant, John Jack Dewey.
Whereas it is with deep sadness that we acknowledge the passing of Jack Dooling, a man of God who dedicated his life to his community and to serving others. And whereas Jack lived an honorable life, and after 37 years at Crouse Hines, Jack launched into an extraordinary chapter of his life dedicated to his community. And whereas Jack served passionately as a volunteer for Loretto, as well as Vera House, where his commitment and substantial efforts were acknowledged with the Outstanding Contributions Award. And whereas he was elected to the town board in 2011 and served 2 additional terms, always working hard to represent East Syracuse and the entire town.
And whereas Jack was well-known and respected for his lifelong work as a coach and mentor to youth for East Syracuse Pop Warner, Little League, and St. Matthews CYO. And whereas Jack's faith was very important to him, not only being a member, but serving as a Eucharistic minister and lector at St. Matthew's Church in East Syracuse. And whereas, while he always gave a lot of himself and sacrificed for others, Jack received immeasurable support from his loving wife Pam, who always stood by his side. Now therefore be resolved. I'll let Leticia bring it home.
I gotta make you clap. That Leader Nidecia Hernandez and all of the members of Onondaga County Legislature do hereby recognize and honor the passing of God's servant, John Jack Dewey.
Thank you.
Yes. Picture of board. Yes, paper.
Absolutely.
I got a picture.
Right here with. Opening day, New Year's Day, that's when I'm wearing that shirt.
I would just like to thank Tony Ledge, and I'd like to thank the board and the outpouring of love and dedication has been overwhelming. And we all know he was a great man, but you all something.
Hey. All right, Alana, you want a tough act to follow? You gotta come back.
This is a resolution to implement a smart growth community task force and appoint a climate smart community coordinator. Several years ago, probably a little more than 10 years ago, the town took the climate smart communities pledge, 2009 actually. And since then, the town has done a ton of work to become more energy efficient and, you know, have its comp plan with sustainability elements, sustainability plan, all of these things. And never actually, we're not sure if we didn't receive climate smart community. If we ever got certified as climate smart, we did and let it lapse, because you have to.
I think we let it lapse,
Yeah, you
but I
can
do
certify
think we got it.
years. So, we'd like to recognize and have this recognized, you know, all the work that the town has done and is doing. So we'd like to become certified as a bronze community is the first step. So in order to do that, first we have to create a climate smart community task force and also designate a coordinator. So for the task force, we'd like to use staff as our task force. You have to have at least one staff member or town board member. So we have Joe as the town board liaison and Eric Balmut is our environmental planner who attends all the meetings. So we have, and he's the liaison from planning and zoning. So we're hoping that that be our task force. Then Eric Balmut would be the coordinator. And basically we have to take all the actions that the town has done. Once we have, you know, these in place, and we start taking these actions and you can get points and start filling out an application. So we've already started that process. There's some things like the sustainability plan that expired, so over 10 years old. But you know, we'll see what we can get credit for and then see what the next steps are for that. But with some new things that are updating some of the things we've already done.
Hey, you know, you guys know I support this, right? I think most of this board supports this. What we do today is pass the resolution and then work with DAC to inventory all that we've done and where we want to go to. I know Doug, with part of the modernization of the building and the construction, changing out these lights to LED is one of the things on the agenda, right? So that would be another credit we've looked at things like geothermal and stuff that we could relook at some of these types of things and stuff. So we've got a lengthy list of accomplishments and we got some things we still need to do here. And I committed to Alana that I will come in and out of this task force as I have time permitting stuff. But I do think I have scattered, but the records of the past history that you guys are gonna need going in.
See with Doug and see on my regional planning and development board has records of
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. So anyways, I entertain a motion to accept the resolution. I wasn't gonna read it. I wasn't gonna read it. All right, I got a motion from Carrie and a second from Bernard. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Schedule a public hearing for the local constable law.
Friday, I sent the board a draft copy of the amended constable law, chapter 39A. Two very small changes in the first two subsections. We had previously required that the town constable be part-time. What I found, that's only because that's what Cicero had on their books when we made this law. There's nothing that stops the town from employing a full-time constable. So in our efforts to do so at CBA, that required this small law change. So you'll see in 39A1 and 39A2 that the part-time designation's been removed, which will allow for part-time or full-time employment of a constable in our private schools.
Okay. Any questions?
Is that it? It's just basically the removal of the word.
That is all I did. Yep. Same responsibilities, still peace officer, same job duties, everything.
When do you want the public hearing?
The public hearing, I have the notice already. We can do it at the next meeting if this board wants to do that. And in the meantime, I'll be drafting up the contracts the next school year, so we can get all this done before the next school year starts.
Chief, you were saying that there was a time factor to this, that the earlier the better, correct?
Yes, so we can post the job, and try to fill it as soon as possible.
I can do it for the next board meeting. I just gotta send the notice out.
That'd be July 14th.
Yeah.
Angela, is that good with you too? You got,
Yes, yes.
8:35 a.m.
okay, so I'll entertain a motion to schedule this for July 14th at 8:35 in the morning. Motion from Max, second from Joe. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to inform the board of this issue, but this is one that I constantly get complaints, not tremendous numbers, but it's continued. We got a decade of history here over folks that bring things to the curb. And I get it from different groups, residents, and internally from employees, the highway department and stuff. But we have designated weeks in which the brush is to be picked up, and there's 4 different routes, and so 4 different weeks in the month, and everyone has their assigned week. And it's just gotten lawless in the fact that there is a constant or continual throughout the entire town of brush piles, trees, grass clippings, violations of what we would consider our rules or our guidance on this. And the complaints come from contractors like NIMO. NIMO's had tree cutting throughout the town. And when they run into big piles in the street and stuff, it's a nuisance and it's an aggravation to them. We get it from our own highway department. We've been getting rain this whole entire spring. I feel like we lost spring because every weekend between November and now it's either snowed or rained. And that becomes a nuisance for the highway department and the brush department. But now we've had contractors out on the streets trying to do road work. And I know just in my neighborhood alone, it's impossible to do because they have to go in and clean and remove brush prior to actually coming down the street and do the sealing and stuff. And so I'm going to put together a letter. I'm going to send that to residents and I'm going to tell them all the reasons why we want them to adhere to the week that they are assigned. We've done this periodically in the past. We used to have a newsletter. It was informative in that newsletter. It went out every quarter but there's never been any teeth. And so what I also want to do is I want to ask Matt to work with me to put together a code that gives us the same logical argument from lawn mowing. Now, lawn mowing occurs on a much less frequent basis than I expect this would. And the way it would work is that if someone violates the code, they get a warning, right? Give them a warning. We pick it up, they get a notice right on their door, or it's mailed to their house and said, hey, we had to pick your brush up. It was gonna rain and plug up the storm drains. You put it out at the wrong time. Here's your right time. Give them a warning or two. And then after that, charge them for the service of the pickup. You can have it picked up for free if you adhere to your week. But if we have to come in on the first week of the month and you're not to the third week of the month, this is the cost. And if they don't pay the cost, it drops to the tax bill, just like the lawn mowing. So the logic, the legal argument is the same as it's not a fine, it's a cost of the service. When we have to send out a lawnmower, we're charging for the service of mowing somebody's lawn when they didn't do it. So now we would be charging for the service of the pickup during the unauthorized time frame. And I intend to bring that to vote too. If you don't choose to pass it, it's okay. It's yours. But I tried. Okay. So anyways, I have nothing more to say on that. Any other board announcements that have before we go into executive session? Okay.
We got check register.
Oh, okay. Yep. I'm sorry. Didn't see that.
I don't think there is one.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Because I was looking, I said, insert check register. No.
yeah, that one.
Okay. Yeah, these are just placeholders, like town board updates.
Yes.
Yeah, check registers. If you have them, give them. If we don't, well. All right, with that, I want to thank you all. Several of you have items that we're going to discuss in executive session, but if not, thank you for coming and we'll see you July 14th.
For executive session.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session. Max and a second from Joe. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Staying? Motion's carried. Thank you.